Struggle stalwart Reverend Alan Boesak has condemned the violence during the Western Cape taxi strike. 5 people died in incidents linked to the strike last week, and no arrests have been made. Boesak says the strike should not have cost lives and that the people in power should have intervened before things got out of hand. At the same time, while the strike has been called off by Santaco, the taxi body says it will still approach the courts to stop the city of Cape Town from impounding their vehicles. They're launching that court action today. Reverend Alan Boesak joins us to unpack this story further. Reverend, it's great to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed for weighing in on this conversation. I mean, we're saying that the taxi strike was called off, but we know, just given the court action that is happening today, the tit-for-tat that is still taking place between Santaco and the city of Cape Town, that it's a truce, but it's a very fragile truce.
Well, that's putting it right. It is a truce, and it is a very fragile truce. Excuse me. And we know that we have the small window of opportunity of about 14 days. And the idea is that within those 14 days, the city and Santaco should come together and speak to one another. They should be hammering out an agreement but should be a much more lasting agreement than the one we have right now. But in the meantime, there should also be ongoing conversations between the taxi associations and the city, the taxi associations and the community amongst each other. And that's what we were doing yesterday. But it's clear to me that this is an issue that can flare up at any moment. The city has specific things to do, and the city has specifically to look at their bylaws regarding these taxis and the roadworthiness of vehicles and all those things, and the way those laws are being applied. And the taxi drivers have to take a look at the way they deal and respond to those issues that are fundamental to make driving safer for other people on the road. And especially the taxi drivers have to work between themselves and the relationship with the communities.
Yeah. I mean, you know, as you say, there are so many moving parts to the story. Is it a sign of things that Santaco didn't make it to that engagement that you held at the Woodlands Anglican Church in Cape Town yesterday? Of their willingness to be part of these kinds of conversations that are taking place with communities? I mean, the one organization that was at that meeting yesterday, the Cape Youth Collective, had some really strong and some really thought-provoking things to say about Santaco's behavior and the people that it impacts the most.
Now, yeah, but I mean, you've got it wrong there. Santaco was there. It is the city of Cape Town that turned down the invitation. It is the city and the council that refused to come. Santaco was there, and Santaco explained to the people their side of the situation. Santaco went more. Santaco actually apologized to the community for what had taken place. Santaco had said, as far as it is within our power, we will prevent this kind of thing. And you are absolutely right. The youth did come out with a very, very strong statement. I can tell you, it was a long time since I have been so proud of our young people. Yeah. The way they spelled it out, the clarity with what it is they want, how it impacts the youth, but also how it impacts the community and how they understand it within the broader politics of Cape Town and the Western Cape and the national crisis we are in. I was very, very encouraged. But I was also encouraged by the way in which Santaco came forward, and Santaco actually accepted a proposal that if they go to this task force to talk with the municipality of Cape Town, that they invited a representative of civil society to be to be part of that conversation. Yeah. But I told Santaco, look, violence is not your ally, guns is not your ally, burning stuff is not your ally, killing people is not your ally. You must make your people your ally. And I think that message is a message that came across very clearly, not just from me, but from the youth, for instance, and from other speakers as well.
Well, I suppose the converse of that question is should apply then. What does it say about the city not making it to conversations like this?
Well, that's the point. That's the point. Why is it that the city can send the mayor when it is in Cape Town Cathedral and it is close to the office, so no big deal getting there. Why is the mayor not coming to Woodlands, one of our townships, where the people are really sitting with it? I mean, the crisis was not in Cape Town Centre. The crisis that was caused by the city strike, by the taxi strike, was in places like Mitchell's Plain and Gugulethu and Khayelitsha and the Cape Flats. That's where the mayor needs to be. The mayor needs to come and hear what those people have to say, how angry they are or how disappointed if he were there, he would have heard yesterday that there were points of critique leveled against the city, but there were points of critique leveled against Santako as well. He would have heard the youth speak. And so he's missed all of that because he refuses to engage with Black Cape Town on the same level, with the same respect, with the same intent that he apparently engages with white Cape Town and white business Cape Town. And that is a problem that the mayor will have to face, and that's something that they will have to deal with.
You talked about, the bylaws that need looking at, the behavior of taxis on the road, what taxis are demanding insofar as the impounding of taxis are concerned. Do you reckon there is that willingness from the part of the city as well? And J.P. Smith comes to mind in, the very inflammatory statements he's made over the past 8 days of the strike as well. Is there that willingness to give a little, to take a little?
Well, let me tell you, I was not personally in any of those meetings with the city. Other people went. But every time we get feedback, we get the same feedback. Yesterday, every time the people spoke of the city, Mr. J.P. Smith's name was mentioned. Now we know Mr. J.P. Smith also had a reputation in terms of how one treats in Cape Town the homeless people on the street. And so he has a bit of a reputation as that hardliner who have no compassion, who doesn't understand what it means to live as an underprivileged, non-privileged, poor person in Cape Town. He is such an aggressive representative of the hardness of white Cape Town, new colonialist Cape Town, that everybody mentions his name. And so if I were the mayor, and the gentleman cannot change his attitude, I will take him out of the equation. That's what you do as a wise leader. If you cannot control the person that represents you in such sensitive situation, you say to him, go and do something else that you are good at and bring something else with more understanding, with more openness. And everybody said he treats us with such disrespect. Now that is absolutely unacceptable. Now, if I were in those conversations, I will be better able to gauge Mr. Smith's attitude. But the problem is that whilst Mr. Smith is taking the lead on this, it's not the mayor, it's not the council in general, it's Mr. Smith that becomes the immediate face of interaction between the people and the city, and between the taxi association and the city. And I think that is a bad idea. My proposal to the mayor would be remove Mr. Smith, even if it's just for this crisis. He clearly is not the man to deal with it. Replace him with somebody who can begin to create an atmosphere in which a civilized, respectful, and dignified conversation can begin to take place. Yep. It is so absolutely necessary.
You talk about this new colonial Cape Town, Reverend Boesak, and that's part of the discussion that we've been having on several platforms here on Newzroom Afrika, whether the taxi strike and the handling of the strike by the city is part of electioneering for its own constituency.
Well, that is obvious. Look, next year is elections, and it seems to me that the city thinks that if we can show how hard we are on what they call law and order, then that will endear us, that show us how strong we are. But I mean, it's a law that is unevenly applied. I have spoken to lawyers who have told me that they think that the way those bylaws are written and the way those bylaws are applied is absolutely unfair and unjust. Now, that tells to me that there should be a lawyer from the side of the community, not just from the taxi, so that we can have that conversation. Why do we have laws applied in this way? I spoke to the policemen yesterday as well, and I said to them, you must not allow that uniform alienates you from the people that you serve. You serve not in the first place the city, you serve the people of the city. And I think our conversation should have that kind of depth. And talking about neo-colonial, I mean, that is true. I've often said, and this is the tragedy of Cape Town and of the Western Cape, the DA has succeeded in making Cape Town and the Western Cape almost now the most successful new colonialist project on the continent of Africa. And that at a time in history where the continent is waking up and we are going the other way. We are now in an anti-imperialist, anti-colonialist waking up from North Africa to West Africa. And I'm hoping that that spark will come to us. And that is a totally different context than the context of the last 10 years. And it'll impact our political dynamics in South Africa, even as early as next year, in a way that these people, I think, do not yet understand.
We've been talking a lot about leadership this morning, Reverend Boesak, leadership in the city of Cape Town on the part of Santaco, and leadership nationally as well. There was a statement from the presidency saying that Cyril Ramaphosa is unnerved by what's happening in the Western Cape. But did you expect more?
I mean, no, really, it must not be unnerved. I mean, I get upset when I heard it. I asked the question yesterday. We have a president. He should know that the crisis in Cape Town is not a Cape Town crisis. It's not a Western Cape crisis. It's not a DA crisis. It is a national crisis. As president, he should have come down with his authority as president to say to the city council, this is what I expect you to do. This is how you act in order to serve the national interest, not just the narrow interest of Cape Town or the DA or of White Cape Town, whatever the case may be. He has time to come down to open the netball tournament. He has time to go and sit at an auction and buy a new bull for 3.5 million rand, while the people in Cape Town have no bread on the table. The kids are too afraid to go to school. Their parents can go to work. But it does not have the compassion, and may I say the political common sense, to think half an hour with my people, to talk to them, just to hear their pain is worth 15 million rand that I could earn for whatever. But that's not how his mind works. That's not what a president should do. And that's why I'm increasingly saying that man may sit on the chair, but he's not my president. He has to be removed so that we can have somebody. Politics without compassion is politics of death. And that's what Ramaphosa has to understand.
Reverend Alan Boesak, strong words there. Let me thank you for your time this morning, weighing in on the whole range of issues insofar as the taxi strike in the Western Cape is concerned. Let me apologize as well to Santaco. Apologies for that error. They were present at that meeting that happened in Mitchell's Plain yesterday. And the taxi story continues. Santaco filing another court interdict to stop the city from impounding its taxis. We also know that Santaco's leadership is expected to hold an urgent meeting today as well.